My parents told me that I needed to stop trying to learn the language of the vampires when I decided I wanted to teach myself how to speak Latin at 16 years old. What is the strangest and most irrational thing your parents ever got mad at you for? Reddit. My mom yelled at me in high school for wasting money on books. She would have preferred I'd spent the money on clothes and trying to look nice. My mother too. She also used to sneak my books into our family garage sales, always saying that I had too many. I've even caught her throwing some of them away. It was when both me and my older brother were living at home. My dad came home from work and headed to the fridge and started screaming because there was only 3 ice cubes left, enough for a drink. He then hurled the tray at my brother, yelling, "You have no idea how lukewarm my Kool-Aid is." Dude, lukewarm Kool-Aid sucks. I've been into all kinds of technology since I was a kid, and I'm basically my family's IT guy. This is fine most of the time, but whenever my mom or dad has computer or phone issues again, it's because of what I did last time. Always a tad frustrating to say the least. For being a cripple. Despite living alone and independent since I graduated secondary school, I still get told what a huge burden I am on everyone, even if I haven't seen them in 6 months. Well, that's a huge sack of crap. Good for you. My mom thought that D&D was a way to worship Satan. She's not even a Jesus freak. And friendly advice: tell them that knowing Latin makes it easier to get a good score on the SATs. It was. Times have changed though. I think you can summon a minor demon, but it will probably be bored as crap. When I was a kid, I spent a whole day with my right arm in my shirt because I figured it would be a good idea to be able to write with both hands. I just kept my right arm down and did everything I possibly could with my left hand to get more familiar with it. My parents were slightly amused, but my school teachers were not. I was put in detention for causing a disturbance and secondly for harassment when I did it the second day because damn it, I thought it was a good idea and I was having fun. They just weren't cool with me trying to be ambidextrous. My parents waited up for me and took away my car keys for coming home from a date at 4 AM. I was 21 with a full-time job and a college degree. I had also called them a time or two during the night to let them know I was safe, sober, and intending on coming home before sunrise. For years before this, they told me the car would be my graduation present. On the bright side, they're bitchittery motivated to move out. I walked out of the house the next morning and asked the guy I went on a date with if he'd like to give me a ride to a car dealership. He offered to let me crash at his place that night. I had effectively removed any means they had to control me. Our first wedding anniversary is in 2 weeks. Spending hours playing video games and rotting my brain. Meanwhile, they spent the same exact amount of time watching television. One is interactive, one is not. How is mine worse for the brain? Parent logic. I hear that. I am currently banned from all electronic devices save television. It makes no freaking sense. Did you tell them that they used to say mass in Latin? Or that they still teach it in school? Not vampire school either, Catholic schools. Truth. Went to a Catholic grade school. Phrases were pretty tricky when you're 6. But new personal favorite. Cogito sumia potum alterum. My parents were psycho hardcore evangelical Christians. One day my mom found a B-52 CD in my drawer and yelled at me, prayed over me in tongues, and actually cried because I was listening to secular music. The day I turned 18 and moved out was the happiest day of my life. Mum was in such despair over my unforgivable actions in high school that she exclaimed, "I wish I could die. Just this very moment." I got a B+ in AP US history. Yes, I'm Asian. I'm on the same boat as you, man. I just got my SAT 2 scores and my dad nearly exploded when I told him I got a 790. That's 10 points from a perfect score. I opened my own bank account when I got my most recent job. I still live with my parents, but I pay rent. My mom asked me to give her my online banking login info so she could monitor my spending activity. I declined her request politely and offered to just tell her my bank balance every now and then. She insisted on me giving her my info. I reiterated that I would not. She flipped her crap. "Mom, I'm getting mad. Just give me your information." Me, "I don't want to do that. Mom, you're living under my roof. Give Emmy your password. Me. Number. Mom. Throws random objects around the room in a rage. RAWR. Your mom has been stealing money from you. I lease my car and I was a month from turning it in. It needed brake pads but I wasn't going to bother because, like I said, I only had a month left. I tell my dad this and he says you wouldn't have to turn it in because you don't take care of your things. What? Then he started to yell at me about how I never take care of anything of mine. I asked him name one thing. He said my very first car. I said, oh, you mean the car you crashed because you were driving drunk and hit a deer in the shape of a telephone pole and walked away. I haven't really talked to him since. Had an unlimited long distance plan on our home phone when I was a teenager, so I talked to my friends that lived outside of the province pretty frequently. Parents get the phone bill, the price is always the same, and screamed at me to stop making long distance because it would cost too much if we didn't have the plan. That's just so much stupid. I had $250 saved in a money box to buy some shoes I really wanted. One day, when I get it all out to count it all up, I only had $5 in there. Turns out my brother and his friend had stolen it to buy spray cans. I tell my parents what had happened and they proceed to yell at me, telling me it's my stupid fault for not keeping an eye on my money box because I was too busy paying attention doing whatever I was doing. How could it be my fault? It was in my goddamn bedroom. I never told anyone where in my room it was. I never got my $245 back. I've never gotten over that. It still makes me rage. Kill your brother. My mother didn't let me sit in the front seat of the car till I was about 12. I remember one time when I was 11 I asked her why I wasn't allowed to sit in the front, because she had never told me and I wanted to know why I always had to sit in the back. She got mad at me because she thought I was arguing about sitting in the back. I said, no, I don't mind sitting in the back. I just want to know why. She kept just yelling and yelling. It was horrible. Turns out it was something about an airbag that would crush my skull but magically wouldn't the moment I turned 12. In my state at least, you have to be a certain height before you can safely sit in the front seat. 4 foot something. If I recall correctly, I always ate my veggies so I could grow big and strong and be allowed to sit in the front seat like an adult. One of my younger brothers was having a spat with me back when we were still in high school. He had just bought a World of Warcraft account and agreed he'd let me make and play a character of my own when he wasn't on so I could try it out, just for fun. The only condition was that I didn't tell our mother, so we wouldn't get the standard video games will cause you to waste your life and end up driving a bus speech. Well, one day he decided to change the password on me, telling me I was taking up all his time, despite the fact that I only ever tried to get on when he wasn't, and told me to go frick myself. I quickly came to the decision that this was balls, and decided to spite him a bit by letting our mother know he was playing WoW. Bad decision. The moment I mentioned World of Warcraft, she goes ballistic, screams out World of Warcraft, not in my freaking house. She stomps up the stairs, manhandles my brother out of the chair, and then proceeds to tear the goddamn computer out of the wall. Cords be damned, she just tore it free without concern, and then marched it from now on. Everyone uses IT down here so I can see what you're doing. This crap is not going on in my house. She then proceeded to stomp back upstairs and shred every video game disc covers she could find, including some of mine. I miss you, original StarCraft games, despite our attempts to stop her. Apparently, as I managed to discern from her ranting, she had read one too many sensational articles on the internet about World of Warcraft and its corrupting influence or something similar. My brother and I, after that day, mutually swore that our mother was so batshit crazy that we would just settle our issues without her, lest something similar happen again. We get along better now. Go to stick together to fight the crazy. My sister thought I was in butthole until I went away to university. After 8 months of dealing with the inmates running the asylum, she had a much greater appreciation for me. Not my story, but a friend of mine asked his mother if he could learn karate when he was young. She told him that it wasn't safe, not because of learning to fight or the potential for getting injured, but because you have to do things to earn a black belt, like stand in the horse stance for an hour or whatever. that no human can do without the help of demons. Yep, that's the kind of thing you learn when you're part of the Salvation Army's church. Apparently, the capper to the story is that he brought it up to her 10 years later and she denied ever having said any such thing. That always fricked me up. Whenever my father or stepmother was obviously wrong, and they knew they were wrong, the past changed. My father could have increased efficiency in the ministry of truth. Screwed me up something fierce. As it happened so much I lost the ability to completely trust my memories. My mom got mad at me for putting in ice after I filled a cup with water. Apparently there is a rule where you have to put in the ice first before the water. I usually do this, but this one time I didn't. She got pissed off and started yelling at me. I just put the ice in first to avoid splashing. My dad and mom get very angry when I study a lot. I tend to study in long bursts, so I'll study for 10 hours one day before a final and my mom will yell at me saying how I'm stressing her out by studying this much. They say how it's not normal and I should go out instead. I wish I could study that long. As long as you don't give any fricks it should be fine. I decided the easiest way to come out to my parents would be to wait until I had a boyfriend, then take the big swing. So the time came, and I, by text message, told my father that I had a boyfriend. His 3-word response, "Is he white?" Almost politically correct redneck eye roll. The very first time I disobeyed my mom with malice aforethought, I put powdered sugar on brownies hot out of the oven. Mom had told me to wait until they cooled so the sugar wouldn't melt. I did it anyway, because she was wrong. That's hardcore crap, man. I've got a generally psychotic beef for a mother, so this happens all the time, but the most recent hissy fit was just a few days ago. Basically I woke up at 6, took a shower, then went downstairs to go and clean up the house for neat freak mother in an attempt to prevent a tantrum later in the day. About 5 hours after my shower, 11 o'clock, I hear my mom shrieking from upstairs about something and upsetting my little brother. So I walk upstairs and my mom is throwing a fit because I left my wet towel on my bed and hadn't noticed. It had only soaked the top sheet and I immediately set about changing it while she screamed at me about how inept and retarded of a daughter I was. So after I fix the bed I stand there and let her just screech at me for about 40 minutes, saying yes mom and trying to calm her down. I'm not too worried about her going out and getting my brother involved since he's holed himself in his room, but still, I'd rather not have her scream at me for the rest of the day. So around noon my mom starts asking me if I'm autistic abnormal and beating her wrist against her chest. At this point I don't really know how to answer because if I say no she just repeats the question or asks me what normal person leaves a towel on their bed and I obviously can't say yes. When I don't answer she just gets even more irate. This is pee me off, but I don't say anything because I can't. After a while she changes tact and starts calling me stupid, which is highly ironic coming from someone who can't even do basic math, to her 13-year-old daughter in AP Calculus. So at around 1, I start to cry and ask her what she even wants anymore. She just keeps on barraging me with attacks, so I start breaking down a bit and I scream back apologies for being such an awful person in general and a few specific things. My mom interprets this as disrespect and leaps across my freaking bed. Later I find out that she broke it to slap me in the face. I run all the way downstairs, her right behind me, and right when I grab her cell phone she grabs the home phone. Long story short she calls the police, though I think she was bluffing and didn't actually call them, trying to report me for mentally abusing her, being disrespectful, and being wild. They don't arrive. I end up running back upstairs and locking myself inside my room. She tries to break in the door for a few hours and I have to hold it locked. But eventually she tires herself out and goes back to her room with a passive-aggressive "I'm going to kill myself because of you." Suffice it to say it wasn't my best day. TLDR. My mom called the cops on me for leaving a wet towel on my bed. My parents couldn't stand that I wanted to stay inside and read rather than go swimming in the pool in our backyard. They would ground me from reading and force me to put on a bikini and either try to get a tan or swim. I was miserable. Ground a girl from reading and make her get sunspots in the next 15 years. Crazy. 1. Put on bikini. 2. Apply sunscreen. 3. Lie out by the pool while reading a book. My mother is always convinced that random items will burst into flames if there is a chance that the item could become warm or touch an item that is warm. If I rest my laptop on the sofa it will cause a fire. Put a hot pot on a bunch of napkins it will cause a fire. The vacuum is warm to the touch after cleaning the whole house it will cause a fire. Anything put in the microwave will either melt and set the house on fire or give us cancer. She thinks everything gives you cancer as well. No mom, putting something warm on another object will make the other object slightly warmer, it will not burst into flames. She won't even put anything in the refrigerator while it's still hot because she thinks it will spoil all the other food. You should take one of those hot hand things, stare her right in the eye, then drop it on the couch. She'll dive for it and you'll just stand there looking all badass. Then when it hits you go, heats on mother. This all happens in slow motion BTW. One time I was trying to vacuum my house because my dad was yelling at me too. So when I was trying to walk the vacuum down the stairs to my room, we lived on a hill so the upstairs and downstairs were switched. I fell and the vacuum landed on top of me. It hurt like a bee and I started crying and my dad started yelling at me for being lazy. What? My dad got mad at me once for not safely removing the USB in the computer with the whole Windows guide thing. Honestly, I was more surprised about it than P. Thug life. My parents have always brought me up with saying we want you to have the opportunities we never had. So when I told them I wanted to study music production for 2 years at a free UK college course because I was under 21, I expected them to say go for it. Instead I got a tirade of useless subject matter and why waste your time. I proved them wrong not that long ago, as I now work as a producer for a video game developer, with my main focus being on audio quality control. Though to be fair, a couple of years ago they did apologize for that particular year of undermining. They were having issues of their own. As a teenager I asked that instead of getting me Christmas presents my parents donate the money to charity. Mum got mad and accused me of being selfish. My parents are from the old country, back in Southeast Asia, and were very old-fashioned. They hated gambling, as they saw what their relatives and friends had gone through. Being new to the US, they didn't understand the concept of sports cards. I got into collecting basketball and football cards around age 8 to 9 and my parents, though they were playing cards for gambling, I tried explaining but they wouldn't listen. They beat the crap out of me and burned my entire collection. My sister was learning about different religions in school. The religion of the week was Judaism. One of their activities involved making a dreidel and learning how to play the game. So, my sister brings this dreidel home and teaches me and my other sisters. My dad comes home from work to see us playing dreidel on the floor. We're split between Catholic and atheist. Yes, it's possible. My dad, being atheist, proceeds to freak out. He confiscates the dreidel and tells us to never bring one in the house again. Fast forward 10 years and I'm now dating someone who is Jewish. Dreidel all day. I'm an atheist and even I know it's not a party until somebody busts out a dreidel. My parents are great and all, but one time, in church, when I was a wee kid, mass was starting and since they give you little pamphlets with the readings of the day, I started reading them beforehand. My mother scolded me because it was a sin to get ahead. It always bugged the heck out of me, but more because of my mom never ever acknowledging this. I wasn't Catholic for long, it was just a phase, but I shall always remember being very confused. I now see that this memory is boring to the extreme. This enraged me more than many of the other stories on this thread. She is denying you the freedom to fucking learn and think for yourself. That is not a sin of all things. Gah. My dad threw an absolute crap fit and tossed me around my room when I was 13 because he found a 311 cassette, if that dates me at all, in my room. Purple-faced, screaming at me, and pushing me around because I listened to the devil's music. I guess I'm lucky he didn't see the copy of Antichrist Superstar under my bed. 6 neutrons, 6 protons, 6 electrons. It's encoded in the plane we live on. My mom did not appreciate the carbon-12 reference. Really freaked her out that the basic element of all life on this planet was encoded with 666. It was towards the end of the song Galaxy on Transistor. This did not happen to me personally, but instead to a friend. He pierced his ears and they had given him some powder thing for it. Don't recall the reason. Never got my ears pierced. But I think it had to do with keeping his ears cleaned. Anyways, his mother thinks he is participating in some witchcraft and flips out on him. I've been obsessed with writing stories since I was in 1st grade. I was always writing fantasy stuff because of Harry Potter, and then I read The Hobbit in 4th grade. In 5th grade I wrote a story about a girl who had to save her friend who vanished in a forest. It was very Narnia Middle-earthy with sci-fi elements. I filled a whole 75-page notebook as my teacher helped me proofread it, and I typed it up, printed it and gave it to my parents for Christmas. They got like 2 pages in and asked me, "Can't you write something normal for once?" It was pretty devastating for me. My dad had a lot of little odd things, and I think he sort of fricked me up for life with the culmination of them. You mustn't stick your hand so deep into the collection plate. People will think you're trying to steal from it. I had seen that it had some sort of cloth bottom and I wanted to see what it felt like. Don't say sugar rush, 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 rush. But when I was in 5th, 6th grade, I had this book on birds, and it had a bunch of diagrams of their wings in comparison to bat wings or bug wings, and how a goose's wing compared to a swallow's wing, stuff like that. I had a lot of tracings in this book, and took the tracings and modeled them onto tiny human figurines, and notes about what materials would be light strong and how I could build up the relevant muscles. My mom was more upset than I think she had the right to be, going on about how she should take the book away and throw my sketches away, and I needed to stop this. She denies this incident now. Admittedly, this was a bit dumb at the 5th grade level. But since I was disinterested in math and consistently playing ball fetch bench warmer in gym class, I think she should have run with it. Transylvania is in Romania. Romanian is the language of the vampires. Learn to speak Romanian, then throw it in your parents' faces. This was just a few years ago. I was sitting at my computer doing my usual, and then my mom comes at me in such a tizzy, almost yelling this as she asked, "You aren't gay too, are you?" My sister came out to her as B just a few minutes earlier, and my mom only had future grandchildren on the brain. I took it super hard because, even though I was in my late teens at the time, I'd never been in a relationship before, and it bugged me like you wouldn't believe. I was super hard on myself back then with almost zero confidence. I screamed, cried back at her, telling her what a heartless thing that was to ask and whether it had to do with my inabilities in dating. It took her a few years to finally apologize for that fiasco. My dad choked me cause I was reading. My parents had been divorced for years, but when my mom had to go out of town for an entire week, my dad stayed with us to keep an eye on us. Like any substitute teacher, he was overly strict, especially about us being in bed at a decent hour. Upon discovering that I was in bed reading, he got furious. I thought it was a joke at first, but when I realized he was serious, I tried reasoning with him. Mom says that we can read or eat vegetables anytime and she'll never get mad. This was true, but also, I was trying to lighten the situation, as he was really angry. It had the opposite effect. He called it talking back, then proceeded to grab me by the throat and choke me against the fridge. My room was right next to the kitchen. This was the day I realized that parents are just people, and I was taller and fitter than my father. After he choked me for about a minute while talking angrily at me through his teeth, I knocked him to the floor with a punch to the face. I then did a douche stand over him and, feeling very powerful, suddenly exclaimed that if he ever touched me again I'd kill him. Our relationship improved greatly after that, and he never tried to touch me or tell me to do anything ever again. 2 years ago, almost to the day, he died suddenly after I had forgotten to call him on Father's Day. My bluntness is how I'm on. Anyway, yeah, he was peak as I was reading. He'd be furious now. TL. DR. OP reads books. Dad chokes him. OP kicks his dad's butt. I wanted to learn how to ice skate, but my parents feared it would lead to the big 4-letter word, hockey, so they denied me. I still don't know how to ice skate to this day, and I hate it. My brother-in-law, who played goalie in college, is going to teach me to skate with my 3-year-old son. The big 4-letter word, hockey. Maybe they just thought that you'd hurt yourself with the sharp part of the skate. Got 98 on an English test, And my mom was so pissed that I got only one wrong. She took away everything: phone, laptop, iPad, and I was grounded for a week. I'm still confused. 2 of the irrational things. 1. I was grounded to my room, pre-internet, for the weekend for putting too much ketchup on my plate. It was about a $50 sized amount. 2. I was forbidden to watch Sagan's Cosmos. Spell check kept changing Sagan to Satan. I bought Cosmos the book. My parents did not pay attention to the books I read. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.